Dragon Mountain is an extremely weird aero looping coaster at Marineland in Canada. This sprawling ride actually holds the record for the largest steel roller coaster in the world by acreage, and it's not hard to see why. This ride travels over, around, and through a hill. Find out why this may be the steel coaster equivalent of Kings Island's Beasts in this review. Arrow was at the peak of their popularity in the 1980s. The company was churning out record-breaking looping coasters beating height and/or inversion records. In 1983 they did it again, building the new tallest coaster in the world with Dragon Mountain, which stood 186 feet or 57 meters tall. Located at Marineland in Niagara Falls, Canada, this is arguably the weirdest looper Arrow has ever built, and it still holds the record for the largest steel coaster in the world by acreage, as this ride spans 30 acres. The only coaster covering more land is Kings Island's Beast. Very little of this coaster can be seen off-ride, as much of the layout takes place above, behind, and inside a heavily wooded hillside. And that's sort of a good thing because the faded brown track isn't particularly appealing to the eye. The inability to see this ride makes it a mystery for new riders. That's especially true when you head down the ride's long queue line. It begins as this long outdoor path passing the ride's unique bow tie inversion. Eventually you reach this stunning rock cave carved to look like a dragon's head. It's one of the most iconic entrances of any amusement ride. I love it. You then proceed to the indoor section of the queue, which is shockingly dark. I saw a lot of people using their phone's flashlight to safely navigate this section because you have some long ramps down to the load platform. There is some light on the load platform, but it's still pretty darn dark. In all my visits to Marineland, I have never had to wait for this coaster. That's true even with this ride operating with just one train, which is quite the feat because this coaster is nearly 4 minutes in duration. That is a very long ride. The park has 2 additional trains on the storage track adjacent to the attraction, but I have never heard of them running multiple trains, and I don't know if they ever do. I absolutely love the look of these trains. They're some of the prettiest on any ride. They're decorated as a red dragon. You have these yellow flames on the side, and the front car is the dragon's face complete with teeth and scales. Each train is comprised of 7 cars, seeing a maximum of 28 riders per cycle. Of all the seats, I recommend the back car. This allows you to experience the ride's first drop to the fullest, and it also maximizes the bow tie inversion towards the end. If you have long legs, I would recommend sitting second to back. The forces are the same in this row, but you have considerably more legroom. The back row of any car in Dragon Mountain will have your knees pressed against the seat back if you have any bit of height. Riders are restrained by just an over-the-shoulder restraint, which is typical for an Arrow looper. The park does a good job dispatching the trains at a regular rate, considering the trains need to be manually unlocked with a foot pedal. One note about experiencing this coaster is that it tends to open late. At the earliest, it's scheduled to open 30 minutes after the front gates. But my most recent visit, the coaster didn't open until 2.5 hours after opening, so don't try to run to this ride at rope drop and expect it to be operational. Once dispatched, you roll out of the station down this metal tube and ascend the lift hill up the hillside. This lift hugs the terrain, and it takes an eternity. It takes nearly 1.5 minutes to climb to the top. Halfway up the lift, you pass through this cottage and the train actually switches to a second chain lift. This is how long the lift is. The climb is scenic, and it reminds me of a mountain coaster lift between the isolation and abundance of trees. At the top, you have a small pre-drop and round a slow corner. This turn opens up and you see some construction in the distance. But don't get lost in that view because it leads into the ride's first drop. It doesn't use all the ride's height. You probably only drop about 1/2 to 2/3 of the way down the hill. But you still get a good and abrupt pop of ejector airtime if you're in that back car. That's a hallmark trait of most Arrow loopers with a straight drop. After breezing through a forceful pullout, you navigate back-to-back vertical loops. Both pile on the positive Gs. The first loop is particularly potent in the back car because you're whipped through the second half of it. Don't be surprised if you start to gray out here from the sustained Gs. You then rise up a shallow ascent, getting no airtime along the way, and then you navigate a slow turn hugging the edge of the hill. This section also opens up, so you get a nice view of the midway down below. This turn ends in a subtle kink as you level off, which produces a fleeting and weak bit of weightlessness. You then coast through a mid-course that didn't slow the train one bit, and head into the ride's infamous 540-degree downwards helix. This element was always intended to be enclosed by a volcano. When this coaster opened, the theming was incomplete, so it awkwardly took place around bare scaffolding. In 2006, Marineland finally enclosed this helix, and while it looks more like a giant rock crater than a true volcano, it does look cool. The ride no longer feels incomplete. This helix is pretty weak though. It's slow and forceless. The exit of this element is pretty cool though. It leads into a twisting drop that dives underground. It's refreshingly cold in there, and you build up a considerable amount of speed. It feels like the fastest point in the ride, and I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is, given how this coaster uses the terrain. The exit from this tunnel has a suspect transition though, as you abruptly turn left into this extended turnaround. In general, Dragon Mountain is smoother than you'd expect for a 40-year-old Arrow coaster. This element is the jerkiest spot in the ride, and one that can cause headbanging. Outside of that, the directional changes don't really throw you around. The tracking isn't perfect though, as you have some bumps in the valleys, but it doesn't translate to any headbanging, so it's no major issue for me. The extended turnaround takes place in an open field. It's one of the few bits in the ride not tucked amongst the trees. This section is pretty uneventful, minus these two kinks where you level off yet again, producing a pinch of airtime. After passing through another brake run, you enter into a tunnel that burrows through the hill. It's extremely dark, which hides the drop within. It's a really shallow one, so you get no airtime, but you build up a shocking amount of speed in a little time. The pullout delivers a brief burst of positives, then you emerge into the daylight and navigate the bow tie inversion, which is a batwing that exits on the opposite side from which you enter. The star of the element has some decent positives, but you slow down at the apex. Towards the back of the train, you actually get a little bit of hang time from the speed loss. The pullout in between flips reapplies some nice positives. Then the second flip isn't too eventful, but there is a jerk out of it that can cause headbanging if you don't lean forwards. You then slowly complete the rest of the ride. You head up a shallow hill and turn towards the final brake run. The drawn-out nature of the finale feels like autocomplete on Planet Coaster, but eventually you re-enter the maintenance shed, seeing two trains not in use, and then you rumble back into the station, ending the 5,500 foot or 1,700 meter long coaster. This is still one of the longest coasters in the world, as it's currently the 10th longest coaster in North America. I touched on this ride's roughness, but what about the pacing? It's really awkward. The drops and inversions are good, but there are these extended slow sections in between that disrupt the ride's flow. These sections really feel like the drawn-out turns in the first half of Kings Island's Beast, just because of how sprawling they are. So what would I rate Dragon Mountain? I would give this Arrow Looper a 6 out of 10. This is a quirky and uneven coaster, but it has enough good to make it worth experiencing. The ride's setting conceals much of the layout, especially with the use of tunnels. The drops deliver fleeting bursts of speed, and the 4 inversions, particularly the 2 vertical loops, offer good power and positive Gs. I just wish the coaster did more with all that track between those inversions. It thankfully is a mostly comfortable experience, just that pacing is the ride's biggest flaw. I think this ultimately is towards the middle of the pack of the Arrow Mega Loopers. The others have more action start to finish, but this one compensates with that setting and superior comfort. This is still the park's lone major coaster. Not sure if and when Marineland will get another big coaster, but it is worth visiting if you enjoy older Arrows or straight up weird coasters. You're not going to find another Dragon Mountain elsewhere. So those are my thoughts on Dragon Mountain at Marineland. What are your thoughts on this bizarre coaster? Do you like this ride's eccentricity? Let me know what you think down below. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.